We can hear you.
Yes.
And can y'all see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so real quickly, we're going to go ahead and get started. Just a few little disclaimers. I am just going to disclaim that this session is, for those who have not attended one of my regular group sessions, this session is similar, but it's not the same. So it's going to go a little bit more fast paced, whereas we normally go around and ask other people to take questions and work them through. I am going to be doing the majority of the questions. However, feel free, I am going to ask for input and what y'all think the answer is. So we're definitely going to engage in that way. I'll just be the one that's guiding all the questions for this session, since it's such a short session and we want to try to utilize the time as best as possible. The other disclaimer is up here at the top. It's just the same thing what I disclaimed for my other group sessions, that the point of this is to just kind of give you a better understanding of how to break down the questions that's on the ASWB exam, the various types of questions, and as well as from the various types of various units on the exam. So in no way am I claiming that I'm writing these questions. I don't work for the ASWB or anything like that. It's just me trying to help you guys understand so that y'all can go out and pass this exam. For this particular session, we're going to do up to 10 questions or a max of 30 minutes, whichever one comes first. I do have a few extra questions, so if it's going really, really fast, we'll probably do a few extras. But this is meant to be a quick session, a quick study session, just to give you guys something to study on. Any questions from anybody before we get into our session? No questions. Okay, so the only thing I will ask is that everyone keeps your phone, your computer, your phone, or whatever on mute. Unless you are speaking like to give the answer. I will ask you for what the answer is before I give the answer. So you don't have to, you can just unmute and say the answer all at, together, whoever. You don't have to raise your hand or anything like that. Just say what the answer is and you can unmute. But if you're not talking, I ask that you have your phone on mute to minimize the distractions. And I think just about everybody's in. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. If nobody has any questions, we're going to start with the first question. Y'all did say y'all can see the screen, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, so here we go. A social worker receives a referral from a home health nurse for an elderly client, which indicates that his caregiving needs are not fully met by the living caregiving son and daughter-in-law. The nurse notes signs of skin breakdown, isolation, induced depression, and questionable nourishment, all of which she addressed. When the social worker meets with the caregivers, they acknowledge they are not able to meet the client's needs, so they openly support placement, but are not willing to give up the client's retirement funds or sell his home to pay for his care because it was willed to the son. What should the social worker do first? Now, this question I put a lot, I kind of tweaked this one to reflect a lot because I had a couple of clients that have been telling me that they've been having longer questions on the exam. So I want to make sure we address that. So the first thing when we're looking at these questions, y'all, we have to pay attention to where we are in the helping process. So if y'all taking notes, that's one of the first things I teach my clients, that we always pay attention to where we are in the helping process. And so that's going to be either the beginning, the middle, or the end. In the beginning, we know that we're focusing on engaging and assessing. The middle, we're doing the planning and interventions. And at the end, we're doing the reviewing and terminating, all of those things. So 1 second, y'all, somebody else is trying to get in. Okay, so in this case, it says a social worker receives a referral. So that lets us know that we are in the beginning phase of the helping process. Okay, so that means our focus should be on engaging and or assessing the client because we're in the beginning. So whatever answer we pick is going to have to be something that we do in the beginning of the helping process. So this referral comes from a home health nurse. And she's basically saying that this elderly client is not really having her needs met by the caregivers. Okay, that is going to be our presenting problem. The presenting problem is, what is the initial situation that's going on here, or what brought the client in? that is what you're focusing on as the presenting problem, right? So I know some people think the presenting problem is going to be the main meal deal, but that's not how I teach it. The other problem that we focus on is what is going to be the priority issue in the situation. So we know that this is a referral for a client that is not being, an elderly client that's not being taken care of. So she tells us everything that's happening right here in the scenario. I'm not gonna read it again, but y'all see it. So when the social worker meets with these caregivers, they acknowledge that they're not able to meet her needs, nor are they willing to give up her funds to help meet her needs. That's going to be the priority problem. So it is going to be very important for y'all to be able to distinguish between a presenting problem and a priority problem, because whatever answer you choose has to be based off of a priority problem, okay? You don't base your answer off of why the client came there or what the initial situation is. That's just what I like to refer to as line yap information. But what is the main problem here? The main problem is they don't want to take care of this lady, but they don't want to give her funds either, nor do they want to give her house that could contribute to her being taken care of. So they're asking you, what should the social worker do first? So remember, y'all, we are live in the moment, always have a live mindset. And so first, of course, a lot of people like to sequence that, but I teach people that if you worry about doing what's most important about the priority issue, then you don't have nothing else to worry about. So when you have a first question, focus on doing what's most important about your priority issue. So this question is asking, what is the most important thing you're going to do about this problem right here, about them not willing to give up her funds to better take care of her? So the answer choices: A, accept that the caregiver situation cannot be changed at this time. B, arrange a prompt extended family member to explore options. Or C, contact the local APS to report suspected abuse. So out of these three options, which one do y'all think will be the most important thing to do at this time according to what the priority is? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
I would say C.
C.
Okay. So we got to see. Anybody think it's anything other than C? If we have anybody that thinks, please speak up, because we want to hear we do want to hear the perspectives. Anybody think it's other than C? Okay, so now I just need one person who said it's C to tell me why. I need you to rationalize why is it C?
It's the priority because of all the existing issues that's going on with this person, the broken skin, the isolation, all of that, and refusal to give up the funds.
Mm-hmm. So
It's
basically,
neglect.
yes, that in the summation, very, very good. So this is neglect. And so anytime there's any evidence of abuse, neglect, or exploitation, which they're exploiting her funds because they're over there living in her house, living off her funds, don't want to give them up, that's exploitation. So anytime those things are evident in elderly, then we definitely want to call APS. So the answer definitely is going to be C for that one. Does anybody have any questions before we move on? All right. A social worker is meeting with a 9-year-old girl who presents with a number of complex developmental deficits. The girl isolates herself from communicating with others, engages in little imaginative play, has poor peer relationships, limited responses to others, and exhibit odd, repetitive motions, routines, and rituals. The girl's most likely diagnosis would be, all right, so basically, out the gate, this is the Unit 2 question. Unit 2 question, anytime they're asking you about a diagnosis. So whenever you realize that this is a diagnosis question or even an assessment question, your brain should automatically go to where are the signs and symptoms? So, because that's how you're going to pick your answer, of course. So you're looking at all the signs and symptoms that they're giving you, which is all this. And so you're going to match all of these up, not 2 or 3. You have to match up all the signs and symptoms that they give you with the diagnosis, since that's what they're asking you for. So is that going to be Asperger's syndrome, Rett syndrome, or autistic disorder?
Autistic. I swear.
Anybody have anything different?
It's C.
Okay, so we got, nobody's gonna contest C, so the answer actually is C. Y'all, this is one that somebody recently seen, not this exact question, but closely seen on the master's exam. So I'm just putting it out there. If you don't have information about autism, this question similar to this was just recently seen on someone's exam who just recently took the master's. So this would probably be something good to know. All right, and as y'all can see, we're doing a lot of the 3 answer choice questions because they're popping up all over the exam too. I'm gonna have some 4s as well, but they're definitely increasing on the exams. A social worker at a walk-in clinic is seeing a man who states that he was recently evicted from his girlfriend's home after living together for the past 2 years. He reports that their breakup has also put his job in jeopardy because she was his ride to work and he has no family or close friends in the area. Despite these issues, the client is primarily preoccupied with the loss of his relationship and the security he received from it, which is all he wants to talk about. After briefly discussing the client's feelings, what should the social worker do next? Before we jump into the answers, this is the next question. And for my people who don't know what to do with the next questions, you have to look at, after you read the entire situation, you look at what's the last thing that the social worker did. So in this case, can anybody tell me what was the last thing that the social worker did clearly?
After briefly discussing the client's feelings.
Yes, so that means whatever answer you choose is going to have to come after you have already discussed his feelings, but we still need to know what the priority issue is in this situation. So you're a social worker at a walk-in community clinic, and it says you're seeing, whoever just came in, can you mute? So it says you're seeing a man at you're at a community and you're seeing a man. Usually, y'all, I tell people this word right here is seeing means that you probably already been working with this man. If it says is meeting a man, it could denote the beginning. We don't want to just kind of, make it absolute, but that's just an indication for y'all to have. So you're seeing a man who states he was recently evicted from his girlfriend's home, all of that. That is the presenting problem. This is why he is here. So understand that. You always want to know, okay, why my client is here? Because he was evicted from his girlfriend's home after the past 2 years. Well, he tells you all of this other stuff that's going on, which is just line up information. But the main issue here would be, despite all these issues about him, his job being in jeopardy and all of that, all he wants to talk about is the relationship. So in this moment, you discuss his feelings. So what's going to be the next thing you do in this situation? Is it going to be meet the client where he is and work on his feelings regarding the relationship issues? The relationship loss. B, redirect, talk about his relationship issues and prioritize his more immediate needs. Or C, refer the client to a homeless shelter. What is going to be the next thing that you do in this situation? Considering everything that's going on, what are y'all thinking?
A.
Somebody said A. Anybody think anything else?
B.
Somebody said C.
No.
Anything else? Somebody? Okay, so whoever said A, tell me why you think it's A. My person that said A, why do you think it's A?
Because they're already discussing his feelings. So, and then it's saying, what do you do next? So there has to be some, well, I'm presuming some acknowledgement, with regards to his feelings.
Okay, so if you're already discussing his feelings, why would you do that next?
Yep.
Oh,
See?
good point.
So A is not the answer.
Yep. Yay.
So what would be the next answer?
I
The next
think
option.
B is the answer.
B is the answer. Somebody tell me why.
We already talked about his feelings. So the next thing is to focus on what his immediate needs are. so that then, yeah, we can meet his needs.
Yes.
So I think B is the answer.
That is key. And the key word in this, y'all, is knowing what the question is asking. And that is that this is the next question. So y'all have to know how to answer these next questions. Pay attention to what was already done. So a lot of people tell me that, oh, you have to go to the last sentence like the last sentence in the scenario and do what comes next. That is not always the case. Sometimes that's the case, but you want to specifically pay attention to the last thing that was done by the social worker, because it says, what should the social worker do next? So that means, what has the social worker already done? If she hasn't done anything, then you use the priority problem and do what comes next. Any questions about that one before we move on to the next one? All right.
Yes, I have a question. This is
Okay.
Nona. Anytime there's questions like that, I always kind of felt kind of strange redirecting. So it's not just meet them where they are. It's okay to say, you know what, let's talk about something else at this point.
I mean, you probably won't say redirecting is not really saying specifically, let's talk about something else, but you can subtly change the subject to redirect the subject instead of you coming out blatantly and saying, all right, enough of that, let's talk about something else. And I know you wouldn't say it like that, but that's just in my mind how it comes off. So you would probably, just like, you've already kind of discussed his feelings, and now you can say, okay, so now let's talk about, your plans to for housing. Do you have any other options, or you want to look into some options for that, and maybe some transportation, get to work? So you can subtly change the subject. That is redirecting as well, instead of just saying, hey, let's talk about something else.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. A social worker is seeing a married couple. On the individual intake forms, the husband reveals that he is bisexual and his wife does not know. He also reveals that he recently learned he is HIV positive and he has not disclosed this information to his spouse, nor does he use any protection when being intimate with her. He states that she would suspect something if he started using protection, and he is unwilling to reveal his HIV status or use protection. What should the social worker do? So my people already know that this, if it just says, what should the social worker do? This is an ethics question. So, and that just means it doesn't say what should the social worker do first or next. So that means this is predominantly ethics question. So this question is already asking me what's going to be the most ethical thing I need to do. All right. So it says you are seeing a married couple. So this means you probably already been working with this couple because it says you're seeing them and not just meeting with them. However, it's letting you know that on the individual intake forms, the husband revealed he's bisexual and he also revealed all this other stuff. So this is where our presenting problem is, right? So I know that it sounds like it's a priority, but this is really just telling you what's the initial situation. Think about what's going on. And we're adding that second sentence because it says he also. And so whenever it says the client also, or she also, he also, that means that it is in addition to. So that means it's in conjunction with what precedes it. So that's why all of this is going to go together. So this is our initial situation of what's going on. So the main problem is that all of this is going on and he's still unwilling to use protection, or he don't want to tell her, nor does he want to use protection. That is the main problem. So the question is asking you, what is the most ethical thing that you're going to do about this man who knows he's infected and continuously sleeping with his wife, doesn't want to tell her, or doesn't want to use protection? So ethically, what are you going to do as a social worker? Are you going to A, maintain confidentiality, B, contact the wife to inform her of the danger, or C, because state laws vary, the social worker should govern accordingly?
C.
C. Somebody says C. Does state laws vary about this, or is there something specific that we do in this case when it's something as dire as this? Anybody think it's anything other than C?
No,
I
state
think
law
it's
does
A.
vary law.
Okay, somebody's telling me A. So somebody said maintain confidentiality, and somebody said C. So these options are actually in opposition of each other. So it's got to be one or the other. So my person that says C, I want to know why.
This is Nona. I'm going to say C because I'm in the state of California. In the state of California, we do maintain confidentiality, but I think I'm certain in Texas and Georgia that you do notify and you could be prosecuted for knowingly infecting someone and not disclosing your HIV status. So
Okay.
I would go with varying state law.
Okay, and that is very correct. So that's why maintaining confidentiality is not correct, because it really, you have to know what your state laws are, because there are some states that mandate that this is reported. Some of the states, I think like one of them is said, while other states, Washington is one of the states that require reporting. I'm not sure about Texas and all, and I should probably know about Texas, but I don't. But there are some states that require doctors, social workers, like people that are already mandated reporters, when you find this stuff out, to definitely warn the other person. So you definitely have to know your state's statutes when it comes to that. Any questions about that one? All right, moving along to the next one. A social worker is meeting with the parents of an 11-year-old girl who brought her in for evaluation after she unexpectedly began vaginally bleeding. Despite the absence of other signs, they are worried about potential sexual abuse. The social worker's most appropriate response would be to. Okay, so in this question, it says is meeting. So that tells me I'm in the beginning phase. So I should be worried about engaging and assessing my clients who are the parents that brought in their 11-year-old daughter because they think that she is, let me not go too fast. This 11-year-old just started unexpectedly vaginally bleeding. That's going to be the presenting problem. So the priority is, despite the absence of other signs, these parents are worried that she has possibly been sexually abused. That's where the major problem is. So that's where we're going to base our answer. Remember, y'all, the priority problem is where you get your answer from. That's what the exam is looking for. So the question is saying the social worker's most appropriate response. When we have most questions, that means you just meet your clients wherever they are, where they are, and do what makes the most sense. So this is asking, what's the most appropriate response? So what response is going to make the most sense for you to give to these parents? Is it A, or to this family, because it's the parents and the daughter? Refer the child to a qualified pediatrician for an examination. Contact local child abuse authorities and make a suspected abuse referral. Interview the child immediately for sexual abuse.
A.
A.
Give me 1 second. I'm on the other screen and it's not letting me get over. Okay, so A is refer the child for a qualified inspection, right? I mean, for qualified pediatrician examination. It's not letting me get over on my screen. Okay. Anybody think it's anything other than A? I'm not going to be able to get the rationale right now because it's freezing up on me, but anybody thinks that it's anything other than A? Okay, so the answer, hold on, y'all. My computer's freezing up and I'm not even sure why. The answer is A, though. So you are going to refer her to a qualified pediatrician for examination, because it could be anything. It could, if their concern is that she is possibly being sexually abused, it could be that, or it could just be maybe she started her period, but that's not for us to decide. We're going to refer her to somebody that's qualified to make that decision. That is the answer. I will come back and push the rationale up here, but I don't want to waste too much time trying to do that. So we're going to keep going.
I do have a question really quick.
Okay.
So on not the one that you just did, but when you see the word seeing, what did you say? Are you in like the middle stage of in the problem?
Yeah, most of the time
Okay.
you are. That means you've pretty much started working with them. Like if you start seeing somebody, then you've already started working with them most of the time, versus when they say that you are meeting someone, that means like that most likely denotes the beginning.
Okay.
That you're in the beginning. So yeah, so those little keywords can tell you where you are in the session. All right, so a social worker is seeing a 14-year-old boy whose parents are concerned about his persistent, rebellious, disobedient, and argumentative behavior. The parents reported that the boy is constantly angry, argumentative, he ignores family rules, and refuses to perform basic household chores. There is no evidence of abuse, drug use, nor does he appear to be a victim of bullying. The most appropriate diagnosis in this situation is, again, Unit 2 question, real You just look at what they say the behaviors are. So just looking at these behaviors, which one of these answer choices do you think it most appropriately aligns with? Which one makes the most sense? Is it oppositional defiant disorder, conduct disorder, adjustment disorder, or ADHD? So this is definitely a recall question. You have to know the signs of these, and these are some of the most common diagnoses that you actually see on the exam. So
A.
what y'all thinking? A, anybody
A.
thinks it's anything other than A?
It's B,
Mm.
conduct disorder.
Oh, so we got A and a B. Okay.
Mhm.
So, okay. So one thing, this is really good because this is a good teaching lesson here. So conduct disorder is usually reserved for the older population.
Right, don't you have to be 18?
Yes, that's what I was getting ready to say. So conduct disorder is usually reserved for the older population, like the young adult population. So before that, they refer to it as oppositional defiant disorder. So the difference, y'all have to know the difference. In childhood, it's called ODD, but once you get into young adulthood, it changes to conduct disorder. So definitely know the difference for that one. It is, let me make sure.
And doesn't conduct
Savvy?
disorder goes with antisocial personality disorder?
Yes.
Give that
It
route.
doesn't go with it. They're different.
Well, they turn into it. I thought one of them turned into it once they reach a certain age.
It
That's-
does. Once you turn 18, it
Once
turns
you turn
into
18, then it's conduct disorder. Antisocial disorder is when they are like getting in trouble with the law, breaking and entering, stealing, doing more illegal things. So that's when it turns into antisocial disorder. But for this one, like oppositional defiant, that turns into conduct disorder, which could turn into antisocial disorder. But antisocial disorder is if they tell you like he's breaking the law, he's out here stealing, robbing, beating up, you know what I'm saying? Beating up people, those are more of the antisocials.
Yeah, antisocial
Mr.
criteria
Savvy.
C requires conduct disorder after the age of 15.
Okay.
I'm a
Yes.
professor, so I teach psychopathology.
So this
Yes,
client is 14, so we haven't made it there, right?
Correct.
Okay, so hopefully everybody got that. That's good information. After the age of 15. So this is a 14-year-old boy. All right, we're gonna keep it moving. And it also, okay, there we go. I don't know why my computer's doing this. A social worker is meeting with a 59-year-old woman who reports symptoms of depression. During the initial assessment, the client discloses numerous challenges at work, in her marriage, and with her children, but states no clear reasons why. The client is extremely underweight, has trouble sleeping, and states that she feels unmotivated and tired all the time. In order to best assist this client, what should the social worker do first? All right, so this is the first question. So we know we're going to be looking for the most important thing to do about the priority issue. It says it's meeting. So that means we're in the beginning phase of the helping process. So that means we're focusing on engaging and or assessing. That's what we're going to look for in an answer. Okay, so we have a 59-year-old woman who reports symptoms of depression. That is a presenting problem because that is why she's there. Again, this tells us clearly where we are in the beginning. In the initial assessment, the client discloses all of this and she doesn't know why. The client is extremely underweight and has trouble sleeping and says she feels tired. Now, this is where it seems like the biggest problem is. So it says she discusses that she has numerous challenges at work and her marriage, but the main issue is she coming here, she's extremely underweight, she's having trouble sleeping, and she's tired and motivated all the time. I'm talking fast because I'm trying to beat the timer, y'all. In order to best assist the client, so that means you're already meeting the client where they are and doing the most important thing for the red statement, which is your priority. Is that going to be assess the client for further precipitating factors of her depressive symptoms? Is that going to be the most important thing you're going to do about her being extremely underweight in all of this? B, refer the client to a psychiatrist for an antidepressant evaluation. Is that going to be the most important thing that you're going to do for this red statement? And remember, I'm saying most important because this is a first question. C, teach the client coping skills to better manage the situations in her life. Is that going to be the most important thing that you do about the client being extremely underweight, having trouble sleeping, all of that? Or D, refer the client to a primary care physician for a health evaluation.
D.
Anything other than D? All right, D is definitely going to be the answer because this is where we're focusing at. So one of the things that I want y'all to pay attention to, how they line these questions up. If somebody, didn't realize that you have to pretty much distinguish between the presenting problem and the priority problem. If you looked at this and you said, oh, well, we want to focus on her symptoms of depression, then B would be a more plausible answer. If you focus on the fact that she discloses these numerous challenges, then A A or C would be a better choice. But focusing on the fact that she has these physical issues seemingly going on, we want to refer her to a physician. So a lot of times if y'all look at the problems that's in here, they will match up with an answer. So I know in my one-on-one sessions, this is like the biggest light bulb for a lot of people. They give you, the way they set these questions up, they will give you a problem, and down here they'll give you an answer that matches. So the whole deal is you have to be able to pick the right priority problem so that you can pick the right answer. And to do that, you got to know what is the most important thing that's going on in a scenario and base your answer off that. I tell people you consider the situation, but you focus on the priority problem, which is the red statement, which is why I put it in red to remind you that this is what it is. So on the exam, make sure you're highlighting the priority problem so that you can go back after you pick your answer and match it and say, okay, is referring the client to a primary care physician for a health evaluation the first or most important thing I'm going to do, being that she's feeling tired, extremely underweight, all of that? Yes, and you match it up like that. So we're going to do one more. Okay, a social worker is working with a client when she discovers that she is currently sexually involved with her last therapist. Yeah, that she is currently sexually involved with her last therapist, which is why the therapeutic relationship was terminated. The client mentions her right to confidentiality in an effort to ensure that the social worker does not report the issue, even adding that she would deny the information if asked. What is the social worker's best response? This is a good question. Okay, so so let's see where we are. It says it's working with the client. So that means you're pretty much in the middle phase because you've already started working with her. That's the intervention phase. You're already working with her, and then you discover that she is sexually involved with her last therapist, right? That's the presenting issue. So the main issue here is like the social worker is like, the client is like, yep, that's what I'm doing, but that's my business and you can't tell it. That's pretty much what this is saying. Yeah. So in this situation, what is going to be the social worker's best response? Best means most beneficial. So what is going to be the most beneficial way for the social worker to respond? Should she ignore it as they are consenting adults? She's no longer his client, and the client cited her rights to confidentiality and her intent to deny it. Should the social worker double check state laws to see how much time must elapse after termination of a client's status before a relationship is possible? Should the social worker consult with her supervisor or legal counsel to ensure the proper response to the situation? Or should the social worker note the NASW ban on all relationships with clients, current and formal, and report, but keep the client's name confidential? This is a good question, y'all. What y'all thinking?
C.
I'm thinking C.
Okay, so we got a C.
Ethics.
Hold on, I'm trying to get back to the other screen.
Social worker's best. No.
I don't know why it's doing this. Okay, so somebody said C. So give me your rationale for C. This is a good question. I don't even remember where I got this one from, but it's a good one. For the person who says C, what's your rationale?
I guess my rationale is basically because you don't really know about the past relationship, I would seek the supervisor just to make sure like you have enough information.
Okay. Anybody think anything else? Best response. All right. So this one, y'all, I'm glad I put this one on here.
I think too, because you always say if we're in the here and now, and it's the best response.
Yep. So what you gonna do? So that's what you're saying, C?
B.
No.
B.
Somebody's saying B. Double check the state laws to see how much time elapsed after termination of a client. All of that. So neither here nor there. I'm gonna just go ahead and post what the answer is. It is significant to note that the NASW Code of Ethics Standard 109 bans all sexual involvement with both current and former clients and offer no time or circumstances limitation, period. So y'all, if y'all didn't know that, y'all make sure y'all know that. Now here is where a dilemma takes place, but I don't think it will take place on the exam. I've never seen a question to question it. There are some places that will say that you can date after a certain time period. So I'm assuming that's where they got this B option from. But if you are a social worker and you're going under the NASW Code of Ethics like we all should be, it clearly tells us in Standard 109, don't do it. Just don't even do it. So hopefully that made it clear. Anybody have any questions about that or anything else that we've done before we go? All right, well, thank y'all all for that. I hope this was helpful for y'all. I just wanted